Last year, I spoke at a conference for leaders in an international collegiate ministry. And after I spoke, a young man who is in leadership very prominently in this prominent ministry got up on stage and he began to share his battle with same-sex attraction and how he just never felt, though he never gave into it, he never felt he could win it because he felt like the church was constantly telling him that his sexual sin was bigger and badder than everybody else's. And when he looked around, he saw a lot of brokenness, a lot of porn. Erotica is overtaking the women of our church right now. A lot of divorce, a lot of sexual sin before marriage. And he said, how am I so much worse? And then one day at a conference like this, a godly brother in Christ pulled him aside and he said, from the back of the room, look at them. Do you know that the struggles they have sexually are the same as yours? That they might not have them manifest the same, but at the end of the day, and he pointed to all the men, and then he pointed with his own finger to himself. Most men in this room have desired to have sex with someone they are not married to. And then, when this young man was telling the story, he asked all the men in the room that was true of to raise their hands. And they did. And in the back of the room, his friend had said to him, it's just that every time we have one of those desires of our body that are outside of the will of God, we have to turn to Romans 12, and we have to choose to submit. And the Lord told me to write this down backstage. It doesn't matter what form of sexual temptation Satan tempts you with. We're all in the same boat. And it is our choice to obey the desires of our body or submit sacrificially to God's plan. How do you need to sacrifice? I'll tell you how my husband and I sacrifice. When I was 15 years old, I gave away the gift that God meant for me to give to my husband on my wedding night. I gave it away to a man who is a perfect stranger to me today, and it was the great, great heartbreak of my life. When I made that choice, I proved that I'm capable of having sex with someone I'm not married to. My husband brought an addiction to pornography into our marriage. He was a virgin on our wedding night, but not pure. Believed that would go away, and it didn't. So 3 years into our marriage, we sat down and we lived by some very serious sacrificial guidelines. One of them is that we don't have a meal with someone of the opposite sex. We don't have a meeting with someone of the opposite sex alone. We don't even get in a car with someone of the opposite sex alone. And I'm telling you, when your ministry is traveling, that gets dicey sometimes. When a church sends a young man to pick you up at the airport, and you say, I think I will take a taxi. And we've been made fun of, and we've been ridiculed, and there are those who think we're just confined to self-righteousness, but it's not that. It's just that we know how broken we are. And that if we don't live our lives in constant living sacrifice, we will disglorify the God whose life we desire to glorify. And so I just want to ask you this question today. What's your sacrifice? How does God want you to live your life out? And don't be afraid to be drastic and radical about what it takes to protect the image of God.